I got one good laugh over there. I wasn't even me.
What's holding this up?
I don't know.
I'm ready.
Nothing. Roll call, I think, is the only thing.
Hello.
All right. So we're going to call to order this mini budget workshop for Tuesday, January 25th. City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mayor Owen.
Here.
Vice Mayor McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Cloding.
Here.
Commissioner Sacks.
And I'm here too.
Thank you.
All right. Public participation. Any members of the public wish to chime in today? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. So we're going to first hear from Fire. I think I have up first. So we hear from Chief Vandemark.
Well, good evening. Thank you for I feel like we just got our budget approved and we're back at this again. So,
Yeah.
so it's Groundhog Day all over again. Before I get started, I'm going to like to bring up my new deputy chief, Dan Harshberger. Dan comes to us from Osceola County, but not before stopping at several other counties along the way. Had some time in Martin County, a couple other South Florida counties. Very, very knowledgeable, very invested in fire and EMS services throughout the state. He's served on multiple state boards through the Florida Fire Chiefs and the EMS side of the house. Has more connections in the fire and EMS service than I have gray hair, so that's a significant number. So he's only been here for 2 months now. Has really been a good shot in the arm for us, and just want to welcome him. I know a couple of you have already met him, but he's currently homeless because he sold his house in Kissimmee and is looking rapidly to find a place to live. So looks like we're going to keep him.
All right.
So,
We are members of the First Step Shelter, so if it gets bad, we can get you a bed out there.
It's been great so far. Thank you so much. Great.
Yeah, welcome to the team.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Appreciate it.
thanks.
all right. So as always, we want to come to you and just thank you for throughout the years and the support that we get from the commission and the taxpayers of New Smyrna Beach. I want to go through our presentation, give plenty of opportunity for you guys and to chime in and ask any questions. Stop me anywhere along the way because I got some things in here that may be conceptually new to you, and so I'd like to get an opportunity to speak to them if they are.
So Commissioner, as we go through this, it's pretty relaxed. If y'all have anything, just feel free to jump right in.
Chime in. You're not going to mess up my rhythm at all. So the fire department's broken up into three separate divisions. Fire and EMS services, that is both the operational side of the house as well as fire prevention. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Medical transport, we've parceled that out as a separate division within the fire department, primarily because it's the only service that we provide that actually also provides reimbursement revenue back into the general fund. So our mechanism for tracking money spent and money coming back in was to separate them into their own division. That way, every part of that service, we can kind of take a look at it and measure what's going out, what's coming back into us. And then emergency management, which is everything from special events, hurricanes, preparedness, all the things of that nature. In 2021, we had 6,249 responses. That's anywhere from elevators, elevator calls, EMS calls, fire calls, motor vehicle accidents, all of those things. We also transported 1,966 of those patients to the hospital with our own ambulance. Obviously, evac ambulance being part of the team also came into town. We did approximately 54% of all EMS calls we transported last year with our single ambulance. So we're going to dive into that a little bit later. Through that year, we had 98 fires of varying types, be it house fires, wildland fires, car fires, any type of fire call. We lost $1.1 million in property, but managed to save 11.3, according to the property appraiser. And through our inspection process, we have 100% compliance in building code. That is a necessary evil of the prevention. It's somewhat painful to small business because we go in there to kind of and make sure that they're compliant, that everything they have is safe and built the way it needs to be built. It's maintained the way it needs to be built, hood systems, suppression, all of those things. But that provides us an opportunity to not only connect with the business owners, but also an opportunity to prevent them from having that tragedy, whatever that tragedy is. According to the Small Business Association, 40% of all businesses that are struck by tragedy don't ever reopen. So that's significant. If they were to have a fire in there, and we've caught, through our prevention, we have 3 inspectors now, through our prevention, we've actually caught things that had pretty good potential. I don't want to, make a bigger deal out of it than it is, but we've had things that were, teetering on the edge of a catastrophe. So we're grateful for those 3 individuals out there actually doing the job in prevention. A couple issues. Some of these are that we kind of discussed last year, and we've taken steps to fix them, but I'm putting them back on here again because traffic's not going away. Traffic continues to be a strategic issue for us. We've integrated our entire system with Opticom traffic preemption. That's a tool that we use to help us interact with the driving public better. Probably the most dangerous thing we do in the fire department is drive the streets of New Smyrna Beach, interacting with the public, either non-emergency or emergency calls. The unpredictability of the driving public makes it difficult for us to navigate safely, and the traffic preemption kind of helps soften that a little bit. We do a immense amount of training in driving alone to help mitigate some of that, but then of course we can engineer other behaviors through training and through just proper behavior modifications.
Quick question on that, kind of tangentially related.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of a trend in fire services that we are on top of, ahead of, behind, whatever? We drive these massive rigs around, and I have to feel like, I know it's probably, you got to be over prepared, for everything, right? So, but probably for 90% of the things we roll up on, you don't need a ladder truck. You don't need most of the things. So is there a trend in fire to go to a scaled down version of some of these rigs for some of these other type things that we're responding to, these other calls we're responding to, that would help in this case as well? Navigating the traffic, navigating the narrow streets, the smaller things. What's the trend there broadly, and then what are we doing here locally?
So the trend you're describing would be a mechanical trend. That would be where we take people from a 60,000 pound truck and move them to an 8,000 pound truck, for example. In larger, busier cities, that's a good model. Because they're able to run a mid-sized rescue and not run a ladder truck. What we've done is not really move them from one vehicle to another, like you're kind of describing. We've done what's called right-size response. We've adjusted what we even respond to. We used to run to nursing homes like Ocean View Nursing Home 300 times a year. And we don't do that anymore based on whatever the call takers are doing over at County Dispatch. That's just one of the many things we've done. We've done, through right-size response, we've been able to scale back what we respond to, what we respond to emergency to, for example. But to move a crew from one apparatus to another kind of puts them out of being in the right truck at the wrong time. If something were to pop up and they were driving around in the pickup truck, or the beefed up pickup truck, if you will, and now they're not prepared for the fire that they get toned out for. So certainly some departments have done it, but usually it's because they're geographically they're more dense, more compact than we are. We're spread pretty thin geographically speaking. So the other another initiative that we've taken on, especially with the help of Brian Fields, was the traffic light at Station 50 and 52. The traffic light at 50 is going to help eliminate a lot of the dangerous interactions that we're having right there at that particular intersection. Response times are important to me, but the interaction with the public is way more important. So that's really what's going to help mitigate some of those hazards, if you will. They've got a notice to proceed on that, so we've got 364 days before that traffic light has to be in place. The one at Station 52, we're still waiting on some preliminary design items from the Hyatt project and other things with alignments and all of that. So we want to get that right the first time. It's an expensive project, and to plant it in the ground and then move it because it doesn't line up with the driveway doesn't make sense for anybody. So we're willing to wait that out until we can get it right the first time.
Chief, with 52 though, you have a traffic light east and west of the station. And if you put an Opticom receiver across the street from the station and tie it to those two lights, couldn't you control both lights with the Opticom?
We actually have that in place right now, not with the Opticom. We actually have a push button within the
Right.
firehouse. We can lock down those lights to only allow outbound traffic, if you will, if
Right.
that makes sense. And we've utilized that to some degree, but then of course you have Cooper and these, you know, parking lots, and of course now Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, that's, what is that, several hundred people a day at least. So there is a system in place already that helps mitigate some of that, but obviously with all of those other factors, we can't fully lock down that block of land between Peninsula and Saxon, if you will. So. Good.
You know, just so that when we started this whole process with 50, we started out with a $50,000 traffic light, and now we're into a $665,000 road renovation, and everything else DOT wanted to do, and we're ended up paying for it. So, you know, I'm leery of jumping into another situation where we're gonna pay for road improvements when it's not necessarily our issue or our problem,
Right.
especially if we're already controlling the traffic at the two intersections, east and west of the fire station.
Sure, and the road realignment at Station 50, I believe that was gonna happen anyways at some point. I think DOT had been looking at that for a while, because that's a kind of a treacherous little intersection, and I think you're aware of that. With that project, they're actually trying to, right now, prevent the Canal Street traffic from heading eastbound, turning left across the 4 lanes of traffic, if you will,
Right.
and heading east. That's one of the engineered implements that they're putting into that project as well. So there's definitely more to it than the traffic light, like you're describing. There's definitely some realignment, some medians, other things that weren't necessarily our drive at all, but it was
Right, but we are
what
paying-
DOT wanted to do.
But we are paying for it, so.
Yeah. They're. I got some traffic? Oh, sure.
Yes, Commissioner, I know you've had some qualms about the traffic light at Station 52. Being as FDOT warranted that light, and from what I've seen, living there on that portion of the Barrier Island, there are some really dangerous line of sight issues. As you come eastbound and westbound, the station is almost hidden. So with the fact that Hyatt is going in, may be willing to discuss sharing cost, I think it's still on TPO for feasibility. So I'm hopeful that by the time that process moves along, with some help maybe from Kiabi and Associates, from the TPO board, we can get more funds to help us out and make that a little bit cheaper. I wouldn't expect, I'm just guessing though, that the traffic light at 52 would be anywhere near the cost as the one at 50. But I'd like to see the numbers as well. I think you're really going to need a light there soon. And you made a good point when you said, yeah, you hear the air horn a lot, but that could be one driver. But I've heard from a lot of the firefighters that come out of there, there's definite safety issues coming out of the front of the station. So, you know, I would support it strongly. I can't change your mind. I know you have different thoughts on it, but I think it's warranted, and hopefully someday we can fund that as well.
Didn't say I was opposed to it, I just don't want to pay for the whole boat.
No, I know, I don't blame you.
Yeah, and of course with traffic impact funding and all of that, I mean, we have a lot of projects out in New Smyrna that could also use that funding as well. So certainly I don't want to, strip the coffers just for a traffic light. But when it comes to interacting with the public, it's certainly something we need to address.
Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, as our condos continue to age, our high-rise buildings, our commercial buildings, the fire protection systems within them also age. We have a really good crew of fire marshals, fire inspectors who stay on top of that. But that, again, they're beginning to run into headaches with supply, first of all, but also just the cost. The cost of maintaining these falls back on the owner, the condo owners, or the business owner. So it's always a balancing act between, you know, enforcement and making sure that the systems are where they need to be. So we're constantly working with the built property owners. There's several condos in town that need work, and you know, it would be nice to get that work done tomorrow, but we're working with them to give them a plan, to develop a plan over the next couple of years to get it right, and make it a reasonable ask. You know, we can't go in there and drop, you know, $150,000 fee, or not fee, repair bill on them from a vendor, and not expect there to be some kind of heartache from that. So certainly working through that. Expansion and annexation, we're going to be talking in a little bit about the calls, especially west of town. For those of you who have already looked ahead, we're going to look at those numbers. ISO accreditation and training. The Insurance Service Office sets their ISO rating for the city of New Smyrna. Right now, it's a Class 3 fire department. With some tweaking, we could definitely improve that to a Class 2 at the least, which is an improvement. 40% of your ISO rating is based on water supply. The other 50% is based on fire department functions, operations, things like that. So obviously, our partnership with New Smyrna Utilities weighs heavily on our ISO rating and how we get rated, because that 40%, if they're not adequately working with us to gather those records or to do the maintenance or to do whatever has to be done, will impact our ISO rating, and that's important to us to keep insurance rates low, especially for new residents of New Smyrna Beach. Did a 6-year study west of Sugar Mill Drive. West of Sugar Mill Drive, we're talking about Coastal Woods and Venetian Bay and all those other projects, eventually Advent Health and things like that. Fiscal year 2016, 918 calls for service from the fire department. 7 years later, we have 1,721 calls. We had almost double the amount of calls over a 6-year period if you look at the growth. In 2021, fiscal year 2021, 27% of all fire department calls happened west of Sugar Mill Drive. And that, to me, that trend's not going to go away. Obviously, we keep on erecting houses west of Sugar Mill. There's new projects coming south of 44 near Airport Road at some point. I see plenty of vacant land out there, and I imagine that there will be projects popping up out there as well. This is not an action we're taking in 2022 or 2023, but this is something I want to put in front of you to look at for the next 5 years and see what's going to happen out west of 95. We may be looking at expanding services west of where we're at right now at Station 51, Venetian Bay, whatever new projects pop up south of 44. So this is not anything we need to take action on now, but I certainly want to put it in front of you in this year so that you can start looking at it as the potential for growth west of Sugar Mill.
John?
Go.
2020, obviously, huge increase.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at that. Do you know how much of that was due to COVID? Because I'm trying to look at what changed that pattern, and the one thing that did significantly hit would change that for 2020 and 2021 would be COVID. So you know how much was, growth is there.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But that jump, that extreme,
50%,
yeah,
I was
would
thinking the same thing.
there has to be,
Sure.
I would say that, what's the outlier, but I think I know it.
Sure. Well, and if you look at 2018, 2019, there's no change, right? So 2018, 2019 are exactly the same year for call volume west of Sugar Mill, and then you get that spike. Now, I will say this, when COVID first came around, our call volume dropped significantly. You had people who for the first 6 months would not leave the house. They wouldn't even turn their lights on. So if I were to show you a chart of what our call volume went to, actually, you're looking the wrong way, this way.
Nobody wanted to go to the hospital to get
It dropped significantly. So I would have to go back and really kind of data mine a little bit.
I don't want you to go back and do
No,
the
I
work
get
on
it,
that,
I
but
get it.
I was just,
But anecdotally, I would say probably not a significant factor.
Really?
Because I haven't heard a lot of COVID response changes, really. People don't call 911 for COVID. They either go to the hospital when they shouldn't, or by themselves, or they just don't do anything. They get treated at home. So we haven't seen a big EMS bump anywhere because of COVID.
So I'm with Commissioner McGurk on this. Like, if you had shown me a gradual trend up, that's in line with,
Sure.
we've seen gradual growth out west.
Sure.
We didn't see a 50% increase in population west
Right.
of Sugar Bill.
Right.
So like that, there's got to be some other
Yeah.
contributor to see that stark of a change in
Yeah.
1 year. I think we've got to just peel that onion back a little bit and see what's underneath that. I mean,
Absolutely.
whether it's a priority of yours or not, I don't know, but I think this trend holds over time. I actually am surprised that in 2017, 18, 19, we didn't see more of a
It's relatively flat,
kind of a
right?
gradual. I know,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. So to see this all kind of catch up in 2020
Yeah.
leads me to, is there some other factor, or is there some change in the data? I've worked with a lot of data in my life, and this seems like, this one makes me go, huh?
There's a skew there, right?
Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
amiss.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it doesn't change the overall, what you're saying overall.
Right,
I mean, whether it's COVID or not, it doesn't matter. Those are the calls that
Right.
you're getting. I just found that number interesting, and
And if I were to draw all of my calls over those same years, it would be more flat than this is. So that being said, COVID should have bumped us up an equal amount
Overall, yeah.
through all of my firehouses, and it hasn't done it. So I'd like to see what the next 2 years bring out there. I mean, before we plant, obviously we're not planting flags or anything out there yet, but certainly it's something we need to be looking at strategically down the road. So. Yes, sir.
Has the interlocal agreement had any effect on your operations that you foresee for the future?
Sure. No, the interlocal agreement hasn't had any major impact. It actually has improved recently because Edgewater has started playing nice with the Oak Hill town down there. We were actually running through Edgewater to go to Oak Hill calls at one point. So that's an improvement with the interlocal. Mutual aid and auto aid agreement. If you're talking about interlocal service boundary agreement, that really has no impact on us whatsoever. Yeah.
But the mutual aid side?
Mutual aid side's been pretty equitable across the board. I mean, we're not taking more than we're given, or vice versa.
So just a quick time check, and I know this isn't you, and we're asking a lot of questions too, but
That's all right.
we got about 5 to 7 minutes or so before I want to make sure we give police some time. So if you got something you really want to hit,
Okay.
now's your chance.
Let's do it. Going to talk real briefly about accreditation. This is something that the fire service as a whole hasn't heavily adopted across the board yet. Police department's been doing this for a long time. Accreditation is a process of just having a outside peer review come in and just look at your fire department and say, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong. The important factor in all of this is it's community driven. With accreditation, we go out and we survey the community, not me. We actually have other third parties go out and survey the community. They go out and look at our hazards, our risk analysis, all of that. The reason why we choose to do that, we actually are subjecting ourselves to some scrutiny, and that's a good thing. You know, we're able to extract data from the scrutiny. We're able to look at this. There are things out there that we may be doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing. There are things out there that maybe we're missing. We don't know what we don't know, and accreditation is part of that process. The process alone is where the real value is. The actual receiving accreditation is like just a bow on top of the present. The process of going through the accreditation, whether you achieve it or not, is where the real value is, and that's dissecting every part of our service: fire, EMS, hazardous materials, all of it. Right now, we provide hazardous materials throughout the city. Maybe our citizens don't think we should be doing that. Maybe they don't think hazardous materials and environmental protection should fall under the fire department. And if that's the case and you're agreeable to it, we pull back from that. But that's what accreditation does. It allows us to really dig into that and see what the value and what the citizenry expects of the fire department and what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. Questions on that one? Medical transport, I'm blow through this one. We did 1,966 last year. We brought in 645,000. We spent, our proposed budget was 473. So you can see we're operating in the black on transport a little bit. That's the first time in the fire department history that the fire department actually brings money back to the table. So that's significant for us. We like to track those type of things. This has been an improvement for the citizens of New Smyrna. The ambulance has been running their tail off, and that's a good thing because that means that our people are no longer waiting to go to the hospital. You know, the 30-minute wait times aren't happening anymore. Our ambulance crews are out there working, getting guys and gals to the hospital, and no more wait times. So that's a major improvement, and we actually get a little bit back on the back end of that. So that's not a lose for us at all. Notable items coming up in the next year that I'd like to look at. Coming to you every 3 or 4 years and asking for $600,000 doesn't really sit well with me, and it probably shouldn't sit well with you either for a fire truck. What I would like to propose, and I talked to Natalia about this a little bit, is some type of fund, some type of set-aside program where we can take a portion of that, a third of that cost, set it into a replacement fund every year, and then when that third year rolls around, we can actually purchase a truck, make that a recurring expense that'll help flatten out the annual budget, and we won't have these $600,000 spikes whenever I buy a new truck or come to you for a new truck every 3 or 4 years. Creating a training captain position, that's going to be important for us as we continue to grow and meet the needs of the city. Right now, we don't have any training staff at all. We do training, but we do it internally. We don't have a dedicated employee for that. The cost of the employee is one thing. Obviously, there would be some reduction in overtime cost, because right now we're doing it with line people. But so there will be a reduction, but it won't be much. And then his or her equipment and vehicle could actually be funded out of impact fees, much like we did the corporals for the PD, I believe. So, and then bottom item, consider implementation of an annual business tax or business inspection fee. We're inspecting businesses right now as part of our obligation to the store owner, the property owner. We need to at least consider, should we be doing that and not charging a fee for that service? We're going in and doing an inspection. We're giving them a stamp on their BTR, their business tax receipt. Is that something we want to continue doing without charging some type of fee to the small business owner, like they do with the BTRs, for example? So that's something to delve into further down the road. We brought this up about 2 years ago, and then COVID came, and then small business started to really take a hit, and we just kind of tabled it for a little bit because it just was not the right time. Capital improvement, like I said, beginning some type of vehicle replacement fund, $205,000 a year. That would be a recurring expense from now until we quit doing fire service, which I don't see that happening anytime soon. A replacement battalion vehicle, that's the command staff vehicle that they drive around in. Right now they're driving an F-350. Nothing fancy, it's just a replacement vehicle with the command center, the equipment they need on that. The gear and the vehicle for the training position would be impact fees. And then if we decide to pursue accreditation, we would actually bring a company in to really dive into that process at around $34,000. That's what Ponson was paying for theirs right now. So, and that's all I have for that. So I can turn over to Mike. Anybody?
Okay. Closing comments, questions?
Yes, sir.
There's 4 things that came up that,
Okay.
that jogged my mind into a few things. You had mentioned the condos. I expect that there's going to be changes in laws regarding condos, especially based upon the one that collapsed in South Florida. Should we be watching that legislation to see if it has any impact on the inspections that the fire department does and the maintenance of their equipment?
It will likely have no impact on fire service or fire service inspection. Our inspections are based primarily on the water systems and the fire alarm system, life safety items. That's a deeper question when you get into the structural stability. That's the building department function. So it'll be interesting to see what comes down the pike with that.
Well, and
in the
that's
next
why I
couple
think we
years.
should monitor it, because I think it should extend to the fire safety systems in it. I know, having been a member of one of them,
Sure.
that they're required to fund a certain amount of backup money so that they can do the improvements and the maintenance. And notoriously, there's a way that they can avoid funding it fully. So maybe we should just try to keep our eyes on it. I don't know whether that's you or Khalid that does that, but I think there's some chances there. Regarding the traffic light, proposed traffic light, that firehouse down across from the Hyatt, there is an agreement in the PUD that Hyatt has to fund a portion of that. so there is some funding in there. I know they're interested in starting construction, and it's my understanding an agreement has been worked out with them to let them go ahead with the building, but that's going to have a year and a half before they want to start building it. So designing a light there is going to take a long period of time. So we should really be on that, and you should be ready with your recommendations as to what should go into that. I have a question regarding your cooperation with the building department, reviewing of permits. The person in the fire department that reviews that, is that directly under your control or their control?
Are you talking about plan review or for new building permits?
Both, plan review and inspections.
So on the fire prevention side of the house, it would be, he would answer to me. When it comes into engineered items, he usually refers back to Gary and Gary's crew. But it usually has to do with its integration into HVAC systems and things like
Right.
that. Not so much, you know.
How many of your fire personnel are trained to do that, plan review?
To do plan review, all three of them.
Okay.
But specifically, and their experiences in plan review for fire protection systems, they are not building inspectors. They are not.
Correct.
Yeah, they
Correct.
can't do
I
that.
understand
function.
that, but-
And nor should the building department be doing fire inspections, as has happened in
Well,
the
I'm
past.
going to leave that
so.
for you to work out. But I know one of the things that we get the most complaints about has to do with the building inspection, or not the inspection, the building plan review process.
The plan review process.
And every now and then they throw out it's the fire department. Not our staff, but the people looking for permits. Getting a building permit is one of the things that is not unique to New Smyrna Beach. Every single town, people complain about that. So anything that you can see to facilitate that process would be greatly appreciated. And the last subject that I have is our land development regulations specify road widths and that type of thing, turning radiuses. Do you feel there's anything lacking in our land development regulations that can be changed where you're not impeded in getting down the streets? I know we have a lot of narrow streets, including in the new developments, where people park in the wrong places,
Yeah.
and because of that, you have difficulties.
So as far as land regulations, I would say the only two things that really impact us are street side parking and just natural buffers that are built or left remaining near intersections. But it's the same scenario that the driving public deals with, is the natural vegetation that we leave in place doesn't impede our view or not, doesn't impede the public's view of us. But as far as the street side parking, allowing parking on both sides of the street, for example, on both sides of the street, that becomes problematic. Single-sided parking is a whole lot cleaner for us. Our trucks are 8.5 feet wide, so.
So are boat trailers, and they
so-
park them out in the street.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I'm going to propose is that we look into these regulations on street widths in particular, and parking off the street. I know there's other commissioners that are also concerned with that. So when that does come up, and the commission authorizes it, I'm going to look to you to get recommendations.
Very good.
So, those are my comments.
Okay. Any other pressing comments for the chief?
Yes, just one.
Go ahead.
Chief, are you confident, and will it make me confident that you're doing everything that you can to improve the ISO rating, which may translate, and that's a question actually, will it translate to lower insurance premiums for the residents?
So we are tracking and recording and documenting everything that we can to gain credit with the ISO. Certainly, some things are to some degree out of our control. Water systems being what they are, the age of the system, the amount of flow down on the old like US 1 Magnolia area, south side. The flows aren't quite as good as ISO would like them, but it's not a regional thing. It's the city's ISO rating is what it is throughout the city. We don't have different ratings for Beachside or West Side or anything like that. It's one rating. So we are documenting everything we can. The training captain that I proposed would help improve some of that. I mean, I'm not gonna say that we're gonna jump to an ISO 1 because of one training captain, obviously. But certainly that would improve our training, our documentation of training, and get us all the credit we can on the fire department side. The fire department is 50% of your entire 100% score for ISO. So certainly that's 50% that we can control with our operation and what we do with it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. There's always more that we can talk about. Look forward to continuing this
Very
conversation.
good, thank you.
While Chief gets set up, I'll say this: the funds concept is 100%. I think the way we should be approaching those things. It stabilizes, normalizes those. We don't do depreciation here as a city. Normally, in a private corporation, you have large expenses like that, but you then depreciate it over time, so that levels out the expense. We don't do that. We don't have that depreciation concept here. So the way we levelize expenses are these sinking funds. So I'm quite surprised actually we don't already have them, but I absolutely think we should. So hopefully we can support that moving forward. So, all right, Chief.
Hey, good evening. I want to move through this fairly quickly, but I want to kind of set it up a little bit. To talk a little bit about where we are in law enforcement and in the country right now. Did you know that nationwide homicides have increased almost 30% in 2021? That's the biggest single year increase ever recorded. You have to go back to 1997 before you can find homicide rates at the same rate that they are right this minute. Fatal drug overdoses are also up almost 30%, which is over 100,000 fatal drug overdoses between May of 2020 and April of 2021. That's a 29% increase. More than 75,000 of these were due to fentanyl or some other opioid. These aren't statistics that just affect Los Angeles or Chicago or New York. These are calls that we have happen here every single day. There's not a month that goes by where we don't respond to multiple overdoses here, and we're using naloxone to revive people. That's right here in New Smyrna, and especially in the southeast section of Volusia County. In 2021, there were 458 officer deaths. Now, a lot of those were to COVID, but that's a 55% increase over 2020, which was 295. It's the highest total ever that has been recorded. The closest total before that is 312, and that was in 1930. The Washington Times report just came out. It says a police officer has been shot nearly every day already this year. Out of the 25 days this year, 22 of those days, a police officer was shot when gunmen have opened fire, killing 4 of them, and including 2 police canines have died this year. I say that because it's very difficult in this day and age to recruit young people to come and do this job. Old guys like me, when we got into this job, this was the thing to do, and it was a lot of fun. It still is for me. But when you ask a early 20-something-year-old young man or young woman to come and do this job, and you say, we're going to pay you this amount of money, give you these good benefits and everything, but you're going to go out there every day and deal with the statistics that I just talked about right now, a lot of these young folks are saying, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go do something that's a little bit safer for me and my family. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about New Smyrna. When you look at the trends and calls for service here, it's going up. And I don't expect this trend to go down. I expect it to go up even more, as where Sean told you that the population is expanding out west. It's the same for us. So this is something that we're going to have to deal with as we get more and more rise in the demand for services. A lot of these demand for services aren't in your traditional law enforcement calls. We're still evolving to figure out what law enforcement's role is in this century. It's obviously changing quite a bit. We still respond to crimes and traditional calls for service, but we're responding to a lot more things that we're being asked to do. We're the only 24/7 agency that's out here all the time. We're a mobile, agile force. We're primarily a people-driven organization. So this is our staffing right now. We still have 6 vacancies in the sworn side of life here. We have 3 support staff civilian vacancies right now. That's our background investigator, grant writer is 1, and there are 2 mental health professionals. The background investigator grant writer starts next week. So I'm excited about that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The part-time positions are primarily our parking staff, and we're a little short over there. We have 1 other civilian position that we're going to ask this year to be converted from civilian to sworn, and that's our animal control officer. She went to school to be a police officer and is just finishing up her street level training now, and she's doing a great job. So we're going to ask that Megan be converted to a sworn position. So this is our current organizational chart. This chart hasn't changed largely in a long time, and I'll show you something really cool in just a minute. Fairly flat organization, and again, what I'm going to present the city manager with in the next 30 days is our 3-year strategic plan for the police department. And in that, I will outline where we need to be in those 3 years and how we plan to get there. I had to go retro on y'all. We found this back in the archives, and that's this slide here. This is a real document. We had to laminate this because I was afraid it was going to fall apart. This is the 1970 org chart for the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. This org chart, and I was talking with Kristen Shaliza back there, this org chart is older than they are. And older, I've only got 1 other officer besides myself, I believe, that was born before this org chart was done.
Did you write this org chart?
I may have written that. I don't know. It may be. The important part of this org chart is while it's set up primarily the same as what we have right now, you look on there and it's a chief, a captain, and then it has 6 lieutenants and more than 6 sergeants. I have a deputy chief, 2 lieutenants, and the 6 sergeants. So we're basically talking about a command structure back in 1970 that's essentially exactly the same of what it is. They actually had more lieutenants than I have now. So I think they were probably a little bit more forward-looking than I am.
They had a jailer.
What's that?
They had a jailer.
Yeah, and we had the jail back then. They probably had dispatching back then, and the mechanics and the maintenance division. So they have a couple things that we don't have, but we have a lot of things that they don't have. Yeah. I don't see anything on there about finance and HR and things like that. Those are stuff that we're doing now. To that end, when we present the city manager with our strategic plan, this is going to be the updated org chart. And in this, we have some needs that we could talk about more at length once you guys get a chance to look at that strategic plan, particularly on the administrative side of life. Right now, I've got Lieutenant Kirk, who handles my support services functions. And he's about as covered up as anybody in the agency right now. He's handling, he does the heavy lifting on the budget, the finance, everything that we've got in that section, the evidence section, records, property, all these things are on his back. Plus, he's a law enforcement officer. He handles our vehicle fleet. I need someone to come in here and manage that stuff so both the lieutenants can go back to being law enforcement guys and provide some leadership and direction for the sergeants and the patrol officers. So I'll be coming back and asking for an administrative services manager, which will be a civilian position. Some of the other things in there, you'll see the operations captain, the support services captain, those also affect the current lieutenants. Right now, these lieutenants are doing the jobs of what in every other agency in this county that captains and majors are doing for the other agencies. So we want to right-size those guys. Then we talk about adding a lieutenant watch commander. These are done in phases, so I'm not going to come to you and say, I need $3 million in 1 year, because I know that's not realistic. But we are going to have to, over time, account for this more of a demand and service. And this is how we're going to do this. You see down there a department training coordinator, department recruiting coordinator. We've just put the recruiting coordinator in place now. This is an officer whose full-time, all-day, everyday job is to find the very best and brightest to bring here to New Smyrna. It's not enough for us to be able to recruit bodies. We want the very best. We're recruiting out of state. We're recruiting from every available academy in this area. So it won't be from lack of trying that we get those 6 positions filled. You'll also see a homeless outreach team on there. I'll talk about the HOT on the right side there. I'll talk about that just in a few minutes.
So Chief,
Yes, sir.
phase 3 represents what? 3 years out?
I'm
Or-
sorry.
When it says phase 3, is that a time period or just,
I left it in phase 3 instead of year 1, year 2, year 3
Okay.
type thing because some of these things we're doing now, and we want to phase those out over the period of 3 years. So it may be that phase 3 comes right away, and then phase 4 takes 2 years. But what we're looking at is, I don't know that we can provide a strategic plan that goes any further out than 3 years, because quite honestly, with the volatility and what's going on right now, I have no idea what's going to be going on in 3
Right.
years. So I purposely put it in phases.
okay,
And we could talk about what the time frames on that once we get an idea of what we can do and what we can't do.
okay.
To give you an idea of where we are, I wanted to update y'all on where we are on our starting police officer, sergeant, and lieutenant hourly for the hourly folks, and then the annual salary for those. This is where we are on starting hourly pay for as of October 1st, 2021. Just to give you an idea that, and I don't know what the annuals are, but I can tell you ours is around 44,000 and change, 45,000. Governor DeSantis has just put the filled positions of troopers at a minimum of $61,200 a year. So again, we're competing with these other agencies. When you look at what currently we're number 6, we were number 1, but now we dropped back into number 6. The asterisks for Port Orange and Ormond is because they're currently negotiating their raises right now. I know that Ormond's proposal was $1.50 an hour across the board, which would take people, we would be back in 7th place at that point in time. Very similar for Sergeant. We're in 5th place here, but again, Ormond and Port Orange are in negotiations to take that up. Lieutenant salaries is, most lieutenants around here are salaried. They're not hourly folks, so they don't get overtime. And so again, we're in the same position here, currently in 6th place. So we're between 5th and 6th, 7th place on every one of these. Makes it a little difficult to recruit. We are largely a mobile, proactive, agile force. So we are people and vehicle driven. We don't respond from fixed locations. I'm not a big brick and mortar person to want to build substations. I believe that our officers need to be mobile, and we follow where the crime takes us, follow where the calls for service takes us. We use an intelligence-led policing program that helps us identify who our most prolific offenders are and our hot spots. And then we get out there and do what we need to do. So when we ask for things in the budget, it's really a repetitive thing. We try to keep our fleet at 7 patrol vehicles. This year we need to replace 2 motorcycles. And then we are at the very end of getting our mobile radios to P25 compliance. So very proud of what Lieutenant Kirk has been able to do to cobble some money out of the previous budgets to buy a couple extra radios at the end of the year to keep us from having to come back and ask for 6 figures to update our radios. So he's done a good job on that. We expect, based on what maintenance ops is telling us, that our fuel costs are going to rise 10%. Talked with the city manager about establishing a marine unit. So we were looking for impact fee trust fund monies on that. I spoke with our fined representative just yesterday, and he seems to think that we may be eligible for a fined grant. So as soon as I can get this grant writer on board, that will be her first course of business, is to apply for that fine grant to lower that cost there. Which brings me to the final thing, which is our full-time homeless outreach team. I currently have detailed an officer to do nothing but homeless outreach. Officer Delahaney has done a fabulous job. He's been in place for a few months now. Our arrest rates are up. Our follow-up investigations are getting done there. We've provided some cold weather assistance. If you've been watching our social media pages, you've seen where Officer Delahaney was able to partner with local civic groups and find some blankets for folks, which has helped us out over the last week or so. He's been liaisoning with local partners, and when I say local partners, even as far away as St. Augustine. We're thinking about partnering with an MOU with an agency up there that's going to come down here and help us with our case management. We've established a vital records retrieval program where folks who don't have their birth certificate or their social security card, I never realized how difficult it was to get these documents. But one of the things is they have to have a permanent address. So these agencies won't send these vital records to a post office box. So we've spent police department funds to create a address at the local UPS store, which has a physical address, and then we're helping these people fill out the forms and go through the red tape to get these documents. They send them there, and then we can deliver them to them personally and also make copies so that those records are available should they be lost again. And we're also partnering with the state attorney's office with their SMART program grant, which allows us to partner with the bridge in DeLand. And the state attorney's office has funded that grant through June the 30th of this year. So a lot of exciting things there. I'm going to be talking to the city manager this week about taking the next step. The next step in this is to create a paramedicine program directly related to homeless and disadvantaged folks that are out on the street. I have a meeting this Friday with Advent Health, and Advent Health, I'm going to ask them to partner with us on this to help relieve some of the stress that they're experiencing in the emergency room every single day with people coming in with these minor scrapes and these other issues of their meds and everything else. I have a good conversation with Advent Health so far. They seem to be very interested in this program. I've told you all before, homelessness is not a law enforcement problem. But quite honestly, we're the only 24/7 agency out here, and it keeps getting dumped in our lap. So I'm going to take this and run with it. I'm going to show you that this program is successful. I've done my research. I've looked at other agencies that are doing very similar programs. And then I'm going to come back to you and ask you to fund it. I'll keep it going for a little while, but if this thing goes where I think it's going to go, I'm going to ask you to come to fund this as New Smyrna's response to our homeless outreach. So that's where I'm at, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
One thing I know on that, I was talking to somebody that's active in that space, and they were saying the hospitals are very often willing partners because it impacts a lot of their metrics and statistics that they're judged by, which can impact funding levels that they get, et cetera, and qualify for when they have those frequent flyers. So the more that we can do, it actually helps them. So that's why they often will be at the table. So I hope we find Advent to be a willing partner in that as we go forward.
I think we will.
Yeah.
When I was in there the other night, when one of our officers was in a car crash and she got a broken arm, that place was packed.
Yeah.
And it was packed full of folks that were there for a lot of minor issues.
Yeah.
So we would like to partner with them to benefit them and to benefit us.
Right.
I think this is a win-win situation.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, just not questions, just comments. I want to thank both chiefs for coming out and presenting this budget. I was driving here and I said, wait a second, it's January. I said, actually, I like that. I like it a lot. We're going to start early. And the reason I like it and starting early is because I think public safety in general needs a lot of resources. Police right now, you're dealing with something over the last couple, you're dealing with something that's just a little different. And while both of you are public safety, there's a little bit of variation on your needs. However, I want police available and ready when I need them. I need ambulances and transports when my wife gets in an accident. You know, we go back to that 40% increase in 2020. Doesn't matter what it is. The fact is it's there. So personally, I want a lot of resources put into what you're doing. I love what you're doing. We do put a lot of stuff on police. And whether it's special events or people coming in, the homeless issue, which has been exacerbated. I see both you guys out there. You deal with them too. So I don't want to get behind the 8 ball. And this city is not a city of 25,000 people. It is a city that doubles, and it is a city that has lots of events and lots of things going on. And my key is that I grew up in a city that got caught behind the 8 ball, and crime went through the roof, gangs, all kinds of stuff. That will happen not from within our local schools, but it'll come in from outside the area as the areas around us grow. I want my wife to be safe when she goes to Publix in the parking lot. There's a bunch of kids showed up and they get themselves carried away and bad things happen. So anyway, I appreciate your presentations, and I want to look forward and what we can do to make sure that we're keeping up with the speed of the town and the speed of our area. Thanks.
So the motorcycles are lease vehicles, right? We leased them in the past. Is that,
Motorcycle unit?
yeah,
So we have a couple of officers that are auditioning, if you will, for the traffic unit.
okay.
The 2 police motorcycles we have are, they don't have a high mileage on them,
Right.
but we've had them since 2016, so they're pretty tired. We're going to keep those and use those as training bikes
Okay.
and for old guys like me to ride. But we found that over the years, we were spending $11,000 a year in leasing of these motorcycles. Doesn't make financial sense to do that. We're better off when we buy them and then keep them for longer periods of time. So what I'd like to do is get into a rolling stock of motorcycles, just like we are in patrol cars.
Okay. So earlier you heard the fire chief present a plan where you basically create a lease plan for vehicles where you pay into a fund. You're amenable to that, I would assume, that we could, if that got set up citywide, that's something that you could buy into. Whereas we kind of put money in the budget every year, and you're not coming to us every year for 7 vehicles. They're already funded over a 7-year period or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the difference between capital and operating, you know, the capital purchases, I get that those are, you know, they're big numbers and everything, but when you look at what we spend on those motorcycles we keep them for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm not talking just motorcycles. I'm talking about all of your vehicles.
Oh, all vehicles.
Yeah, all fleet vehicles. I mean, I work for 2 different municipalities, both a very large one and a very small one, and that was how they set it up, was actually the city owned the vehicles and the fire department leased the vehicles, or the police department leased the vehicles from the city, paid like a lease fee to the city every month for that vehicle, and then when it came time to replacement, the money was there already, and we didn't have to budget large sums of monies. It were smaller amount over a longer period of time.
The agencies that I know that lease regular patrol vehicles, they negotiate the lease rates with whomever it be.
Right.
Whether it be Ford or Hertz or whatever company that there is. Those rates have increased dramatically recently, and they also penalize you for high mileage. I'll give you an example. We leased 2 vehicles for our task force members. They were plain clothes vehicles that we were allowed to change out from time to time so that they wouldn't get noticed by the bad
Right.
guys. Those almost doubled in price between 2019 2020. They went so high that it became unaffordable for us. So out of last year's budget requests, instead of getting 7 marked patrol vehicles, we got 5 marked patrol vehicles and 2 of those cars to replace those. They're just gonna have to keep them longer. But the cost for leasing right now is not feasible at all.
Right, but you would be leasing them from the city.
Yeah, he's talking about kind of an accounting mechanism,
It's an
basically.
accounting issue.
Yeah, it's an
We
accounting
don't care
thing.
as long as you get your vehicles, how
Yeah.
we get them funded.
I think it's probably more, honestly, a finance question of, you know, how do we set this up and structure it to try to avoid these, you know, large things? My guess is the difference, fire's dealing with $1 or $2 million or $2 million apparatuses. They're dealing with, how many patrol vehicles do you have? 21, 25?
We have 69 gasoline burning
Okay,
engines out
so
there.
69, so if they're doing it 7 per year, this is essentially a sinking fund at that point. But we could argue semantics, figure out which way is the right way to approach it. But I think it's, what he's kind of driving at is how do we account for it, maybe more leveling that expense. But I think we're doing it now just we do about 7 vehicles a year is what it seems like to me, so.
Okay.
I just want to, 10 years ago, we did actually a vehicle replacement fund. We did the whole program. I think we end up that we needed $2.5 million upfront to start the program. And at the time, the commission did not approve it. But we did the whole program for the entire city vehicles, including police and fire. So if the commission is interested, I think we could go back and revisit and provide that program.
Okay.
I appreciate your organizational chart. It's very detailed and very precise. Your organizational chart, I like it. I appreciate your organizational chart. It's very precise and it's very easy to read. So I like that. With the doing the documentations for the homeless, isn't that something that HUM is supposed to be providing?
There are a lot of agencies out here doing a little bit here and a little bit there. But when you talk about, I mean, HUM is not out here at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. So, but we do set aside some funding to those organizations through Irma's office, and I think that maybe going forward, that we need to take a closer look at how we fund some of those other projects.
Now, we
Talking
had
about the homeless grants?
$35,000 were budgeted for these agencies, and we stopped them based on this program to see what's going to happen, because we felt like we need to pay some funding to, I guess, to Stuart Marchman.
Right.
So at this point, we have not paid the $35,000 to any other agencies. I'm talking about local agencies.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I think that was it. Oh, on the marine unit. So we currently have a fireboat that takes up a slip in the city marina that could be leased out and be a money-making project. And now we're going to have a police marine unit, and where are we going to dock it? And I would like for the two of you to discuss maybe, is there funding available through grants or whatever to build a designated dock for the police fireboat maybe at the AOB site? I mean, we've kind of targeted that as leaving it as an open space. That would provide better parking for police fire vehicles that are going to use that space. And that could be something that is dedicated for that purpose, and even maybe get some grants for that. Because, the fireboat is taking up a space at the marina. It's currently not there because of the weather issues and/or the beating it takes from the sun, to whereas if we built something that was an enclosed unit to secure both those vessels, that would be something that I think would be better for all of us in the long run, if you follow my drift.
The figure that I proposed up there included a hurricane-rated building at the police department to house the boat, and we would trailer the boat most of the time. But I'm 100% good with it. The issue becomes when you're going to store it at, like the AOB site, then you have to build a dock and a boathouse. It gets very expensive, and then there's a lot of permitting involved in that. I'm 100% good with that, but we would be talking about well more than $500,000 for that.
Right. But then you're dependent on somebody going to the station, picking up the boat, so.
Right.
If it's a routine marine patrol, that's one thing, but if it's something that needs an immediate attention, then, there's that time delay. So if we can look further down the road, maybe save that money on the hurricane shelter, and park it somewhere else in the meeting. But long range, it needs to be on the water or close to the water as possible, I think.
Yes, sir.
And in a secure area. I mean, that's what we did at Winter Park, so.
Okay. Commissioner Clody.
Yeah, focusing on the marine boat and that program, I do think it should be combined, if possible, with the fireboat. I am going to ask that we file a find application for improvements at AOB, and certainly would include that in there, including a building if necessary and if appropriate. We're going to be going through the permitting process anyhow, so that shouldn't be a deterrent. But what I would like to do is try to formulate that plan ahead of time, because we got other difficulties out there at the site, like with the piers and everything. So combine it, make one project out of it, and I think that all divisions will be made better by that. So I would like to see that done. Also, have you looked into any other type of uses for the impact fees? I would hate to take all of them out if there's other things you could do. I know you said you're a mobile force, which is great, but that building, you've been stuffing a lot more people into that building and a lot more facilities that you might be running out of the space for, and it might not be properly designed for it. I wouldn't be opposed to a study, even by an outside agency, to see if that building should be either replaced, expanded, significantly modified, because I think you're going to find as much as you can get people out into cars, you still got to coordinate it, you got to keep the records, you got to have places for them to operate. So I think some money could possibly be used from the impact fees. If you, let's say, need a bigger, you got more people, you're taking in more contraband, whatever, evidence, that money could be put into that so you could operate more efficiently in the increase in the population, would certainly justify it. So,
I would tell you that I believe there's under 1.5 million in that fund now. So any expansion of the building that we have or any other brick and mortar thing we'd be looking at I would think would be considerably more than the 1.5 million. So we'd have to look for an additional funding source for that.
not a problem from my standpoint. It would be money spent for the future because you're going to have it. As much as we say the internet's saving everything and fax machines are great, electronic files are great, we still get overloaded with physical things that we got to put somewhere. Like you're talking about putting up a building, keeping a boat over there. I don't know if that's the best thing, if that's the best way to do it. I would prefer to see it on the water. But we're going to go through an expansion over there in a maintenance garage. If we're going to be putting up a separate building, maybe we should be looking into that. And we should look into it now before we go too much farther with some of these other improvement plans. So don't worry about lack of money. I'd be willing to think about it, which I haven't been in the past. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sacks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I appreciate your efforts and your joint efforts with Chief Andermark. It's nice to see on the blotters that when we have an opioid victim and you guys get there with naloxone and we go from a lifeless body to somebody you just transport over and they're alive and you save them, that's really something special and it's very comforting. A question about the Marine unit. The $500,000, does that include personnel pay, or is that just for the hardware?
I don't, the Marine unit as we have it planned right now would be a reactive unit that would primarily focus, and I don't think it would be a first responder unit. I think it would be more focused on our derelict vessel program and a law enforcement function. So again, the reason why we talked about trailing the boat if we got it would be because it would probably last longer than keeping it in the water. And because there's really no full-time Marine state or local law enforcement presence on the Intercoastal Waterway anyway. Any emergency response would come from the Coast Guard.
Chief, do you think that a Marine unit would fend off maritime crime? I'm seeing in the police blotters occasionally equipment stolen from piers, boats, and I wonder, would you also be patrolling occasionally in the vessel?
I foresee the Marine unit being more active in the summertime or during the boating season, but also I would have told you a couple of years ago that this time of year we would reassign that resource to do something else. But the way we are with derelict vessels right now and transient vessels that come into the area, I think that we would even be working this time of year.
And just one more question, because it's very concerning, the uptick in assaulting police officers and injuries and deaths. Are you doing anything proactive, looking into the future to train and protect the officers that work for us?
So we have a very robust officer wellness and safety program. We're the only agency, to my knowledge, around here that has a mandatory fitness program. So we address both the mental health of our officers and the physical health of our officers. When we have an officer that's been injured, as we have one right now with Officer Derrico, we make contact with that person daily. As soon as we can get them back in the workplace, then we do, even if it's in a light duty function. I think it's important that we take care of our staff because they're the folks that take care of our citizens. So I know that particularly with Officer Derrico, Lieutenant Kirk is in touch with her daily, and I've spoken to her several times since she's been injured. So, you know, the night that she got injured, I met with her parents there. I mean, these are like my kids. So when they're hurt, then I'm hurt, and we take that very seriously. So our folks are well taken care of when it comes to their physical and mental well-being.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So last thing, real quick, when are the next round of union negotiations? What does the schedule look like on that? Do you know? Or
Next week.
Starts next week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we talked last time, and I said it publicly then, so I can repeat it. What we're seeing in police pay, you know, you showed the graph, we were on the far right-hand side, and yet the last time when we, you know, finished negotiations and signed the contract, we were on the far left side. And then quickly, you know, that all changed. You could be alarmed that it's a bit of an arms race. We've been through that before in the public safety arena. I know of it more in the fire space shortly after 9/11. There was kind of this arms race, and there's a lot of things. It may have been on the police side as well, but the headlines I read were on the fire side. I don't think that's the case here. I think what we're seeing on the police side is that is what it's going to take. That kind of aggressive pay scale, and probably even more aggressive, is what it's going to take to be able to recruit people into the profession, just like you talked about in your opening statement. So I hope for the public, I've been very transparent on this, and I hope for the commission, we acknowledge this is the future. We're going to have to keep pace with this, or else these presentations won't be as rosy, because it will be, hey, we would love to do these things, but we can't get people in the seats because they're going to be FHP, they're going to be sheriffs, they're going to our surrounding communities, and we just do not have the people. So, you know, I hope as we go through these negotiations, we're able to focus on what really matters and making sure that we support this, not just with our words and platitudes, but when it comes down to what actually means something to these folks that are doing the job. So I appreciate it. Thank you to both of you for your presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to end this meeting. The next one begins in 15 minutes. And